So, Elisha, thank you so much for being with me today on the Empathic Leadership Summit. I'm delighted to have you here. I love this topic. Oh my God, I'm so excited. How are you today?
I'm very well, Sinead. I'm just really excited to be here and have this conversation that I know we're so passionate about.
Fantastic, fantastic. Okay, so before we dive in, right, give us a little bit of a background about what you're all about. What's your individuality all about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very much my passion and my soul's gift is about freedom of self. It's been my journey. It's been a very difficult journey. I know for a lot of people, freedom of self is everything that we want. But at the moment, society doesn't back that up at all. So it's about freedom of self-expression. It's about reconnecting with your soul, your heart, your intuition, our inner guidance system, and really living life on your terms in your way. And I've gone through a lot of trauma and losses and things like that, like a lot of us have. We've tried the conventional route. We've been told to just fit in, but it's just not what we're here to do.
Mm,
We're supposed to, people forget that as human beings we are actually all empathic, some more so than others. I know with often with HSPs, we might tend to be a bit more so in tune with that side of us. But as humans, we've all got a soul, we've all got intuition, and we've actually all got empathy. We just need to tap into it more.
mm. Fantastic. Oh, it's so true. It's like the spectrum, isn't it? Like the layers and the amount of empathy, and obviously our life experience that's going to influence that and our experience of it. So, what has your experience been of empathic leadership or
Yeah.
lack thereof?
Yeah, well, obviously, externally, definitely lacking. I think we can all relate to that. But internally, I would say I've always had a lot of it, but I've also had my critic, alongside me, and anxiety and depression and, dealing with those. Not so much these days. But when I think back to when I was a child, I had this innate empathy towards other people. I knew when I was about 11 that I was a healer and an empath. So it was a case of, but why isn't everybody else being like this? Why isn't everybody listening to their hearts?
Mm,
Why aren't people just allowing people to feel and be and follow their dreams? So I always knew that as a sort of youngster. And then sort of in my early 20s, I went through a lot of trauma and loss. So then I kind of disconnected with that part of me. And it's been a very long road. It was several years till I sort of looped back into that. It was that sort of what you try to resist persists.
mm,
So I was trying to resist this voice in me, this kind of almost like this being inside of me that was so empathic, and wanting bigger and better things for myself and for the world. And it's just been this journey, and falling into coaching a few years ago. It's just been something that I realized, wow, it's always been there in front of me. So passionate about listening to people, about really hearing what's going on in their heart, not in their head, and sort of like, okay, how can we live more in flow? How can we live in harmony more? How can we just, so I would use the term sort of like the divine feminine. How can we be at one with nature more, go with the rhythms and the seasons rather than this go, 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 9 to 5, 24/7 robotic, sort of the negative of the masculine. So it's just something that I didn't realize, yeah, was always there. And it feels like it's been like a natural programming. And it's interesting that when you're more sort of when you show empathy towards somebody else, it just then opens something in them, and then it allows them to have more empathy with themselves.
absolutely. Oh my God, like literally, I can relate to every sentence. I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I'm sure there's a lot of people watching who are kind of going, wow, I can relate as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like no one has been given permission to live this way, you know? It's there's a block there. There's this expectation from society that we shouldn't
Yeah.
be doing that, be living from our hearts. Isn't that right? Like, well,
Yeah.
what's that
I know, and it's so frustrating that, like, when you really, and it takes practice, it's like a muscle, isn't it? Like, once you really get in tune with yourself and that sort of that empath side of you, you actually know exactly what you want, you know exactly how you wanna live, you know
about?
exactly who you want in your life, and it's like this best friend in you Yeah, because of that survival mechanism that trips us up, isn't it? It's that
Mm.
survival mechanism that's so innate in us biologically to fit in because we want to survive. So we just, even though we're so intelligent, we still get sucked into, oh, I can't, okay, I know what I need to do. I know what I want to do, but I'm going to get sucked into what I'm being told to do or what's
Mm.
expected of me. And it's so frustrating.
But I always say that's actually where empathy trips us up. Those of us who are highly sensitive or very empathic, because we over empathize. We use that skill so much so we don't know we're doing it to the nth degree. And then it's just too much. And we've cut ourselves off.
Yeah, yeah, and hence the people pleasing that then just
Exactly.
trips us up even more, like you say, because we're so naturally empathic. Uh, it's case of like, oh, but I know what you need. So if I meet your needs, then we're good. And
Yeah,
we,
then I should be happy.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
which on one level is a wonderful quality,
Beautiful. Yes.
but it's how we use it, isn't it? Like you said, it's how we use it, and it does trip us up. And that was always my problem. When I look back with my journey, I spent, a good almost a decade worrying about other people's needs and just sort of making sure they were okay. I'll deal with this later. Like I'll deal with this
Yeah.
later. Well, when is later?
Yeah.
For some of us, it's never, and that's so wrong. And I've recently been coming back to the whole, the oxygen mask in the
Yeah.
plane.
Yeah.
Actually
Classic.
putting yourself first in any situation, whether that's on a plane or in your where you work in your office or with your family or your partner, whatever the situation is, put your oxygen mask on
Mm.
first.
Absolutely. And then you're stronger for everyone else. But like
Yeah.
for anyone watching, if you're thinking, oh, I do that. Oh, that's typical me. Like there's a reason you do that. Our brains are wired to be like social engineers. We are socially and outwardly connected
Mm.
to the point that we do tend to forget ourselves. And it's just a case of reminding yourself and having a new habit to say, actually, I have to come in here somewhere in the picture. And
Yeah.
then there's that bit of balance so that you can be
That's
even
it.
more powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And not to go into sexism at all, but like I really I suppose envy in a sense like men, how they can just naturally they just have this incredible like, well, yeah, I'm just gonna do what I want. I'm like, oh
Yeah.
wow,
Yeah. Yeah. Kind
that's
of
amazing.
transactional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like, well, I'm just gonna do what I want. I'm like, oh, I need to
Yeah.
be
I
more like
envy that
that.
too.
Yeah. Whereas
Yeah.
women, sorry, yeah, you go
Yeah,
on.
I suppose, of course, you have the HSP male who has another layer of challenge
Yeah,
because of that particular expectation on them, and it's 50%, you know what I mean? It's 50-50 men and women that are HSPs. So I
yeah.
suppose we'll point to that as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I really do feel like you've said about with HSP men, there are 50% of them. And, I've been interacting with some guys recently, not to talk about my personal stuff, but like online dating. And it's been
Yeah.
fascinating. And I've actually been meeting HSP men
Oh,
and I
great.
didn't know I was. And then I'm having these conversations and they walk away and they're like, wow, I feel so much more grounded and like I can be unapologetically me. I'm like, yes, be
Yes,
unapologetically you. That's the whole
exactly.
point.
Exactly.
If you need to cry, then you cry. If you need to rant, then you just rant. Like your feelings are valid completely.
Absolutely. I always say bravely be you. Bravely be you. Just
Yeah.
be the thing that you are. And like I love the way you said earlier that we ultimately behind it all know what we want. And I think that's why the power of coaching that we both do, that like you can bring someone to the point where they can trust that. You know what I mean? They can trust the fact that they have that knowing. It's just pulling back all the layers to get there, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and that is I can't begin to describe how wonderful it is working with people doing that because I had that done to me. I still had to go through that process. I still needed coaching.
Yeah, me
I needed
too.
therapies to get rid of those initial layers and to be told and given permission and shown that yeah, that inner knowing has been there the whole time and it's okay to trust it. So when you're working with clients and you see them going, "Oh, oh, so that is normal. Oh, that's me." I'm like, "Yeah, that's you." And it's
Totally fine.
wonderful.
Totally
Yeah,
fine.
and when they
Mm.
start acting on it, they just open up and blossom and it's just incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely. So on the flip side of that, what happens, do you think, when people conform too much, you know? Like, I know you talk a lot about we're energetic beings, we're having a human experience, like, and if we focus too much on achievement, do we lose that? Like, what's your take on all of that?
Yeah, it's finding a balance, isn't it? Because it's okay to want to achieve things in life, but again, it has to come from the right place, doesn't it? It has to come from that inner guidance system. It has, if your heart and your soul isn't in those achievements, why pursue them? Who are you
Mhm.
pursuing them for? And that's what I found really powerful, is asking yourself the question of, why am I doing this? Who am I doing it for? Am I doing it for myself? Or am I doing it because somebody expects it of me? Or am I doing it because society expects it of me? Like, just ask yourself why. But I don't think there's anything wrong with achievements. It's just, why are you doing them?
Mhm.
Why are you pursuing them? If that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose like the way I would frame that is like there's a feeling of alignment, there's a
Yeah,
feeling of aligned action. So that of course
totally.
you want to challenge yourself and, pursue things that are exciting. And there should be a little edge to it, I think,
Yeah.
because if you are naturally ambitious or you want to change the world, you want to innovate on something, you want to trailblaze, you have
Mm.
strong thought leadership or empathic leadership, then definitely there should be that little edge, but not to the point where there's resistance that you're fighting against something.
Yeah, and it's almost like, like I said, if your soul isn't in it, it's not what you should be doing. And like you
Mm,
said, it could be in anything, whether you're a carpenter, a CEO of a company, it doesn't matter what you do that might look materialistic, it might look conventional, but if their heart and soul is in it, they're still actualizing their gift into the world.
mhm,
Where, say, for example, I've got a colleague, she works in the corporate world. So maybe on the outside, she looks really conventional, but actually at home, she's incredibly spiritual. She has her cards, she does her mediumship, whatever those things are. But yes, she works in the corporate world. But what she's doing is she's bringing her soul gift into that industry,
mhm.
and she's being employed to create flow, to create harmony in the workplace, rather than it being about money and statistics and things. It's about, like, let's just run a fantastic company where everybody's happy and, in union with each other.
Wow. I mean, that is a fabulous company. I want to work for that company. I mean, that's a great example of empathic leadership, isn't
Yeah.
it? And it's a great example of that aligned action and bringing her gifts to the fore,
Yeah.
and to where they're needed. And that is fantastic. And it's so key, I think, in the corporate world where we are talking about leadership, that harmony is sought after. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think for many years that wasn't the case. What's your thoughts on that one?
Yeah, no, definitely. Because, I saw years ago, it's funny actually, because I remember being in my 20s and early 20s, and I was really drawn to the corporate world because the high energy, the high functioning, because that's very similar to me. And again, sort of not the money aspect, but it's like, okay, well, you get a good job, you get good money, potentially a good life. But at the same time, I knew intuitively, no, that's going to come at a cost. Your soul is not happy about this. And I just knew, I thought, no, I'm going to get really sick if I do that. And I
Mhm.
didn't pursue that. But so I knew that it does need to change. It is changing. And like you say, the more empathic leaders we have in these organizations, it will create that change, that harmony, that peace, that flow. And I mean, it might take quite a few decades, but
Yeah.
I mean, again, I'm an idealist, but I would love it if we lived in this world where we just pulled back on the statistics and we need to make more money this year. We need to make more this. No, why can't we focus on just having a successful business period? But it doesn't matter about the money. Yes, obviously a certain amount is very important, but it's not about up and up and up and up.
Mm.
It's about just having that harmony within the workplace, within everybody, where everybody's earning good money, but they're not chasing the money.
Wow, that sounds beautiful. That sounds, and I'm idealist as well. Okay, so I'm going to be devil's advocate, right? we are the HSPs talking here, right? So this is something that is like breathing for us, this feeling of empathy, So when you're talking about that ideal world, how do the rest of society function in that world? I suppose I have lots of conversations with my community about the non-HSP interaction. And allowing for that, because I feel that, just the way our brains are wired, and we have to honor that. We have to honor the fact that 70 to 80% of the population aren't wired that way, So I suppose it comes down to the question of values and how both can be honored, but it's a tough one.
It is a tough one, but you've brought up a great key point there about values, is that even a so like an HSP like myself who wasn't in aligned with myself, I didn't know what my values were, and I was following the wrong values. I
Mm,
was following the values that were taught to me, whereas now I live my life by my values, and that's made a huge difference in my life. Like I can't begin to express that. So for me, again, this is an ideal world scenario, but the non-HSPs, can they begin to, like I've done, think about their core values, not what external values have been taught to them,
mm.
not the conditioned values, but surely if non-HSPs can know their values, they will actually live a better life. And they, but again, this is a
But
very big
it's a
conversation,
big
because
conversation,
you're
yeah.
always going to have people who value their one
Wealth,
of their core values is money, and they
money,
won't care
yeah,
about anything else, and it will be about the money. So you
yeah.
kind of have to respect that. It's,
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what
I
I'm saying.
can't, yeah,
And when you think of maybe different cultures around the world, different very large countries around the world that have a certain culture, that have a certain kind of attitude towards achievement, wealth and recognition and status are often in those top three values for people who
yeah,
do tend to push the agenda for empathic leadership. So at what point do we have to respect others' values? And I love the way Elaine Aron always speaks about the tough warriors on the one side and the royal advisors on the
yeah,
other,
yeah.
and how really we should, I believe anyway, that we should really embrace and respect that role that we can play, while also allowing for the space of others, because our empathy will always do that anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And with your title, the magic of individuality, we have to respect that we're individual people.
Yeah.
And like you say, you've got those warriors, you've got those royal advisors, and there is no reason why we can't live in harmony together. There's absolutely no reason. And okay, yeah, there's going to be conflict
Mm.
sometimes, there's going to be the odd disagreement and things like that. But overall, I think, as we evolve as human beings, we're in a dualistic world. There's always going to be dark, there's always going to be light. But hopefully, with more and more empathic leadership, it is about being, again, it's that word, in harmony with life, with each other, and with ourselves.
Absolutely. And you know what? It's not the first talk that the word harmony has come up. So I love that. Absolutely. And it's so true. It's harmony means allowing for two different things
Yeah,
together, doesn't it?
yeah, yeah,
When you think about the actual music, the harmony that we create in music.
yeah.
Oh, beautiful. I kind of have goosebumps, and I think that we could chat all day. We're addressing some big key issues there and some big questions. And I love the visionary talk, though. I think that's part of the role of some of the royal advisors, the people I would call the trailblazers
Mm.
or the change makers,
Yeah,
the people who are using their high sensory abilities and their empathy to really make a difference. And it doesn't have to be a difference like, oh, I'm going to change the world in the morning. It's just in their corner, in their organization, like your colleague that you mentioned.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with everything you said. And it is a very exciting time to be alive, because we are helping that momentum, because
Mm.
there is a momentum and
There
it's
is.
not going to stop. And we're here to just guide it through. And and I do have sometimes these conversations with non-HSPs, or like those warrior types. And and it just makes them think, oh yeah, well, I could look at life a bit differently, and I could slow down, or and so yeah, it's happening.
Yeah, fantastic. So maybe like events like this, the more that we feel empowered, the more that maybe we can play that role and
Mm.
be extremely useful to everybody.
Definitely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And for
absolutely.
me, I'm just so passionate about being the example. Live your life how you want to
Mm.
live, and it will just have, like, say, we're doing it in our corners, and it will have that ripple effect because, we are joyful beings at the end of the day, and that's what
Yeah.
we should be doing, is feeling
Absolutely.
joy.
Amazing. That's a lovely point to finish up on. It's been amazing chatting to you. Do you have something you'd like to offer our attendees or somewhere they can reach out to you if they want to know more about your work?
Yeah, thanks, Sinead. Thank you so much for the conversation and having me today. And yeah, anyone can find me at freedomofself.com. That's my website. And on the initial page, there's book a discovery call with me. So there's a free half-an-hour discovery call with me if you'd like to
Fantastic.
speak to me.
Fantastic. That is amazing. Thank you so much. So look, you've been amazing, Elisha. Like I just feel we're so aligned in maybe what we're both trying to achieve in our own businesses. So let's stay in touch and collaborate as much as possible, is what I'd be saying. So come here, thanks for your time and energy today. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Sinead.